Hi everyone, thank you for joining me today. My name is Lauren with the Coffee Cake Quilt Company, and today is Together We Sew Tuesday, where every second Tuesday of the month I provide you all with a free pattern and video tutorial on our YouTube. The pattern can be found on our website at www.coffeecakequiltcompany.com. This is in order to help you build your quilt block library, so you can go ahead and hole punch those patterns, put them in your binder, and have a little complete library to pull from whenever you feel inspiration and want to make a project. This Tuesday we have the Classic Flower Block pattern for all of you. This is a super fun one for spring, and this one does finish at 12 inches by 12 inches. I know it's written here 12 and a half by 12 and a half, and the video also says that, but I'm gonna go ahead and correct that on this pattern. It will be correct when I upload it on our website. But basically there's a picture of the block here. You have your fabric requirements, you have your cutting requirements, and then it walks you through step by step here how to piece. Final piecing here. And then it has a little quilty inspiration for all of you. This is a table runner that I thought was really cute, just using some bold, solid fabrics. I thought that'd be perfect for spring. And here's the finished quilt block I did. These are fabrics from Joann's. I think it came together pretty quick and super cute. If there's any blocks you'd like to see in this channel, please let me know down in the comments, and I will do my best to make those written instructions for all of you and put them up on our Together We Sew Tuesdays. As always, please like and subscribe if you enjoy seeing this content so that we know to continue making more. Thank you so much and enjoy the tutorial. For this project, you'll need your Classic Flower Block printed pattern from www.coffeecakequiltcompany.com. You'll need a working iron, a wool pressing pad, or you could also use an ironing board. You'll need a rotary mat, a rotary cutter, a square ruler, thread, a felt tip marker or Hera marker to do your half square triangles, whichever you prefer, a really good pair of snips, some pins, or you could also use quilt clips like I am here. And if you chain piece like I do, you'll want one of these cutters as well. And then of course your extra piece of scrap fabric here for the leader when you chain piece. Finally, you'll also want your fabric from the pattern that you pre-cut and labeled. As you can see here, just a quick little tip, I like to use these quilt clips and I'll add a little Sharpie here. This is block number A, or fabric A. And I like to erase this with just a microfiber towel, or you could also use some rubbing alcohol to get that off and you can reuse it. And of course, you'll need your sewing machine. All right, let's get started. So this pattern is just for one 12.5 inch by 12.5 inch block. Okay, so for the fabric requirements, you just want scraps in yellow, green, light and coordinating dark color of your choice and low volume background. And then I have the cutting requirements here. I'll also go ahead and put those on the screen for you as well. So first I want to go ahead and start with my half square triangles. So I'm going to take my C fabric from the green, my H fabric from my background, and then my E fabric here from the main kind of darker color that I chose for my flower. So first we're going to mark a diagonal line on all of the green squares as well as your dark fabric for your flower. Since I have two dark fabrics here, I'm just going to use my felt tip marker, but of course, if you have lighter fabrics, if that's what you chose for your pattern, you can go ahead and use that Hera marker. And just to show you what that Hera marker looks like, I'm gonna go ahead and just do a diagonal on this green here. And you basically just press like you would pen, except now you have this diagonal line. Do you see? It doesn't actually physically mark, well, it does physically mark, I guess, but it doesn't permanently mark your fabric. This will just kind of rub right off. Now that I have my diagonal lines on my C fabric as well as my E fabric, I'm gonna go ahead and marry up right sides facing, although these are both solid, so don't actually have a right side, but I'm gonna go ahead and just marry those up here and do that with every square that I have right sides facing. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and set my machine needle to a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm going to go ahead and sew on either side of this dark line. I'll go ahead and show you what that looks like on the machine. Okay, now that I'm at my machine, I want to go ahead and make sure that my needle is a 1/4 inch away from the edge of my presser foot here, so I'm going to go ahead and just move that over. So I'm going to come over here to my settings, and I know that my machine, I have to go 3 spaces to the right here in order to get a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I like to go ahead and take my ruler and confirm that. Okay, perfect. So now I'm going to sew all 4 of those blocks for the green fabric, and then all 4 of the blocks for my dark colored fabric for my flower, ending up with 8 blocks each. And before I forget, I do want my leader. And I'm just gonna sew with white thread. Okay. So start with my leader. This helps me not bunch up fabric when I'm sewing. The needle usually gets caught and bunches up, so I'll just go ahead and start off clean here. I like to chain sew these, and then I'll just cut them apart at the end. If you can see here, I just take this line that we made with that blue felt tip marker, and I go ahead and put the edge of my presser foot right on that line, and then that way I know that I have a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, once I'm done with those 8 blocks, I'm just gonna snip this off and use my tool here to break up those chains. I'll flip it around. Get my final block. I'll go ahead, lift my needle and my presser foot, cut that off, and then I'll go ahead and do the same thing here. I'll go ahead and cut my chain apart. Now that we have our 3-inch blocks sewn up for both the green fabric and the dark colored fabric for our flower, we're gonna go ahead and cut the diagonal here where we had marked. And then we're gonna go ahead, open these up. These are going to be 2.5 inch by 2.5 inch half square triangles. And we're gonna go ahead and trim them up so that they are perfect and give them a good press. Okay, let's press these first actually and then trim them up. That makes more sense. All right, I have you over here at my ironing board. So let's go ahead and just press these half square triangles open here. So I like to press to the dark side, so I'm gonna go ahead and set my seam first. I'm doing this one-handed, so I'm gonna try my best. Okay. And just do that for all of these half square triangles. Okay, now I have these half square triangles opened up and I gave them a good press. I'm gonna go ahead and trim these up now. These are supposed to be 2.5 inch by 2.5 inch squared half-inch triangles. Okay, so I have my roller here. I'm just gonna zoom this in if I can. All right, so I have my roller here, and what I like to do, I don't like to trim just 2 sides. I like to trim all 4 sides when I'm squaring up my half square triangles. So if you'll see there's a diagonal line here, I just go ahead and line that up with the diagonal on this half square triangle that I just sewed. And then I'll go ahead and just trim off both sides like that. Oh, it's hard to do. There we go. Brush that away. And now I turn it around. What would that be, 180? And now I line up this side, same thing, but this time, now that I've already trimmed the other 2 sides, I'm gonna go ahead and line it up. So this is 2.5 inches, and this is 2.5 inches. So I go ahead and line it up here on the bottom, on the side, and then like I said, I have that diagonal running, and then I go ahead and do the other 2 sides. So whenever I do these half square triangles, I am always trimming off all 4 sides, and then you end up with this beautiful half square triangle just like this. Here we go. 2 stacks of 8 each, perfectly trimmed up half square triangles. And now I just want to quickly cover why you do that. 1, you reduce bulk when you go to sew these corners up, but also you want sometimes you want your points to match up. So for instance, if I was going to take these 2 fabrics and match up these points, when you trim them nicely like that, you get perfect points. We're gonna go ahead and set these aside and get our D and F fabrics together. So here are our D and F fabrics. So we have our dark flower fabric, and then we have our light flower fabric. And this step is really easy. We're simply just going to take this rectangle and right sides together, place it with our light color, and sew a 1/4 inch seam down one side. We're gonna repeat that process for all 4 of these. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and give these a good press as well to the dark side. Okay, next we're going to take the half square triangle blocks that we just made and these rectangle blocks that we just made. We're going to go ahead and first join these half square triangles together here with a seam right sides facing down the center to create this flying geese. We're going to do this 4 times. And then once we have that done, we're going to go ahead and connect it to this this rectangle piece here as well, right sides together, 1/4 inch seam allowance. So let me go ahead and do these kind of, it'll be a flying geese essentially when I'm done, but let me go ahead and do those first, and then I'll come back and show you how to attach it to the rectangle. Okay, before I begin sewing, I just want to show you what's going to happen if you press to the dark side like I just did. So you'll end up with both seams going in the same direction here. So it is going to create a little bit of bulk when you go to sew these over. And I'm okay with this personally because I don't want this dark fabric showing up underneath my white fabric. So I am going to just go ahead and sew like this. But if you prefer, you could certainly take one of these seams, push it to the side, and then nest these seams as well to create a better point. But like I said, you might end up with a little bit of dark fabric showing on the white. And the way that I sew these together to make sure that they don't shift, because like I said, there is bulk there, is I do go ahead and just put a little bit of pressure here with my finger and kind of push it through a little bit. I don't know how else to explain that, but it does help to hold those seams together so that they don't separate. Okay, next we'll go ahead and press these open. Okay, now that we have these two half square triangles joined together, like I said, they kind of mimic a flying geese here. We're gonna go ahead and right sides together, join this up with this rectangle block, and we're going to go ahead and sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance down the side here to create one unit. We're going to go ahead and repeat that process so that we end up with 4 of these units. Let's go ahead and press these open. All right, here we are. We have 4 of these units here, nicely pressed. I think the points look pretty darn good to me. So let's go ahead and set these aside and get moving on to our next unit. Next, we want to take these 8 half square triangles that we made. We want to go ahead and take our G background fabric and our B green fabric. Okay, we're going to separate these out into 2 piles of 4. All right, and we're going to join these half square triangles with right sides together to these white background squares. These are G again. And then these half square triangles as well to this B fabric here from your green fabrics. So let's go ahead and do that on the machine, and I'll bring them back over when they are pressed. All right, well, there we go. We have our 2 blocks here that we just sewed together, and we're going to go ahead and join them here with a 1/4 inch seam allowance right sides together to form 4 more units. All right, here we go. I have our 2 units here all sewn up and pressed. We're gonna go ahead and start making our larger units. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to need all 8 of these blocks. So 2 for this one, 2 for this one, and then we're going to need 1 of each of these. Okay, so you're going to want to assemble these as so. Okay, now I don't know if you can see this in the camera, but you see that there's a seam here and here. That's going to line up perfectly with this dark color fabric here for your flower. So make sure that those line up when you go ahead and sew. And then we're gonna do the same for this. We're gonna go ahead and flip this around, or we could also sew it in the same orientation as this. It's just gonna be the same thing, just flipped. So we're gonna go ahead and sew this one together as well so that we are left with 2 units. So we're going to sew right sides together here on the sides for both of these units. And since I'm already going over to my machine, we're going to also do our middle unit here. So we're going to take our A fabric, which was that one yellow piece of fabric that we have for the whole design, and we're going to go ahead and take these 2 units and line them up on the sides as well. And so we will have 3 total units, 2 of the other ones, and then 1 of this unit. So let's go ahead and sew all 3 of these up, and then I'll bring them all back to show you the final configuration for the block. We'll sew those up, and then we'll be completely done with this project. All right, here we go. We have our finished 3 units here. Our top unit, our middle unit, and our bottom unit. We're gonna go ahead and sew right sides together, a 1/4 inch seam allowance here, as well as down here, and then I'll bring it back after I give it a good press and show you our final block. All right, well here we have it, our completed quilt block. This is the Classic Flower Block, and it is 12.5 inches by 12.5 inches. I do think that it came together really nice. I'm very happy with all of my points. I like the colors that I chose. I did a pretty good job keeping everything aligned here on the back. Pressing in between steps is extremely important, especially with all of these blocks that we have that make up this, you know, the half square triangles, for instance, just all of these extra seams that come together here that meet several times together. So these create some bulk, but if you press in between, it ends up looking really nice in the end. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I will see you next time. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, everyone.